Hey, my friends, I'm Matt. This is the 10-Minute Bible Hour, and I wanted to jump in before the deadline at the very end of the 20-teens and just say, hey, I hope it's been a good decade for you. I hope the next decade is awesome for you. But at the same time, let's be realistic. Anytime you look back on a chunk of time, like 10 years of your existence, it's kind of sobering. And there's a lot to take stock of. There's a lot to wrestle with. There's going to be some regret. I have that from this decade. In fact, I got a couple of just flaming singular moments of conversation, of decision making that I wish I could undo and take another run at. But hopefully there's also a whole bunch of stuff that you look back on 10 years and you're like, you know what? Some really cool things happened. I met this person. I hung out with these people. I made this difficult choice and good things came of it. I started some things afresh and it grew into something cool. I got to be a part of some things that were redemptive. And yeah, as much as there are things about the last 10 years that I'd love a time travel token and a mulligan on, there's also a lot of cool things that I've got to be a part of over the last 10 years. And I hope you have a ton of the latter, and I hope you're equipped to process and grow from the prior as best as possible. The reality is that 10 years is a lot to take stock of at once, and I think it's a lot to ask of all of us to just sit down here in the last day or few hours or a few days of a decade and try to apply some kind of narrative to it. And I really try to avoid doing the preachy, advicey thing on this channel because overwhelmingly, I don't know what I'm doing. And so the questions and the wrestling that you get to see me doing here are honest. I'm trying to figure it out too. But if you'd indulge me just a little bit here, there are a few things that people much smarter than me, much better at life than me, have spoken into my life that have been helpful. And they always seem to come in really handy at these take stock of things moments, like birthdays and the end of the year, which for me happen to be the exact same time of year. So just a couple of thoughts, I guess. One, when it comes to stuff that you might wish had gone better over the last decade or so, might I just suggest that since time travel isn't a thing, and there's absolutely nothing you can go and do to change that stuff, that you, me, all of us who wish we'd done a few things differently would move forward with a game plan that is resolve everything that we need to resolve. That might mean some weird conversations. It might mean owning a few things here on the way out the door from this decade. But all we can do with the stuff we regret about the past is make it right with anybody that we hurt, learn the stuff we need to learn from it, knock it off so we don't make those mistakes again, and just move forward in confidence and grace and peace. And this would be a really great time to employ those techniques, to employ that mentality if you haven't already. So it's not my advice. It's advice from better people than me, but I guess thought number one for myself and maybe for you too, if it's helpful as we get ready for another decade, is if there's stuff that we need to square up from the last decade, no time like the present to get that done. And then once we've done it, there's no point in hanging around with the stuff that we maybe aren't super fond of from the last decade. What there is a point in doing is making it right, squaring it up, believing in the grace thing, and moving on to what's next. A second thought. I think there's a temptation at all of these pivot points, these times of year where we are taking stock of things, to try to assign this neat, tidy, movie-like, book-like narrative to what we just got done with. We want a neatly packaged thing that we can tell other people, like, well, for me, my 20s were about this. For me, the 20-teens were about that. Those narratives work in high-budget, carefully planned, meticulously workshopped and rewritten and reevaluated scripts. Those narratives don't work in life. And I know we want to do that to provide a sense of order and this sense that there's a reason for the stuff that we've gone through. And I think there is a reason, for better and for worse, for the stuff that we go through. But narratives can poison us a little bit too, because they're not entirely accurate. And so I think a better thing than trying to force fit a movie-style hero's narrative into the last 10 years that we can package up and repeat to people when we want to give them a story about where we've been and where we're going, is instead to embrace the complexity and look for those places of growth and redemption and clumsiness and just acknowledge that, I don't know, life is weird. And the beauty of it is that we have these moments where we just are exactly what we were at that time. And if you're somebody like me who believes there's a God behind all of this and who's enormously forgiving and redemptive, then there's not quite as much of a panic to assign a narrative to that stuff. We just lean into what it was, appreciate it for what it is, receive forgiveness and square accounts for what we maybe need to do that with, and move on to the next thing, bearing in mind that the real narrative here, according to at least what we see in the scriptures, is that we're people who live on this planet for a little chunk of time, and in that chunk of time, we get to have a degree of awareness of and relationship with the deity who put all of this in motion and initiated us. But the stuff that is flawed and broken about this world and about us is not permanent. In God and Christ, that stuff is resolved, and there's a hope that comes with that and a looking forward, which kind of leads me to my third thing, in addition to, hey, square stuff up and leave the ick in the past and lean forward to the new stuff in the grace of God. In addition to, don't worry about trying to force a narrative onto your story to make sense of things. I really think God is the thing that makes sense of things and the story of His redemption on us. The third thing that I would throw out is to go ahead and allow yourself to embrace hope. It is very fashionable right now. No matter what political or religious persuasion or non-religious persuasion we come from, to lament how bad everything is. The reality is, stuff is pretty awesome. Yeah, there are challenges, there are things that are pretty busted up and broken. We're not communicating very well with each other right now. We're kind of in a weird combative phase, but that is not the sum of the story. And it could be very tempting to imagine, looking back on some of the more divisive bummer parts of the last decade, that your youth is going to be squandered on the bitterest time in human history. And that's just nonsense. This isn't the bitterest time in human history. We can do way worse than this. But also, think about how much is going well. Think about how much you and I have had chances to connect with people just like this that we never would have had the opportunity to do if it weren't for the technology and the smallifying of the world that we enjoy. So much good has come out of that. I've met thousands upon thousands of people who I didn't know before this decade, and now I really like. And maybe we don't hang out in person like me and my very, very best friends, but I don't know, we're brothers and sisters in arms, right? Like we're trying to navigate this thing and figure out what's true and real and how to be on board with that. That's amazing. This is a beautiful time. We're doing better at being less violent toward each other. I know they're big, high-profile things that we worry about, but our tendency toward violence toward each other in neighborhoods and homes is generally on the massive decline. It seems like we're getting our heads wrapped around this shared property we have on this planet. And even though we might use different language and have different points of emphasis, like everybody agrees it's really valuable and important. And people have been thoughtful about that. And I feel like we've reduced the way that we tear things up, and we're making progress, even if not everybody agrees with the pace of that progress or whatever. Hey, there's still good things happening there. We've learned a whole bunch of new stuff. We understand more things. For the first time ever, it seems like people from all sides of the spectrum are pretty excited about ethics and morality and are wrestling with what it looks like to just do right because it's right. And we don't totally agree on what right looks like yet, but hey, something you have in common with your neighbors with whom you disagree is we all suddenly seem to really deeply care about what's right. Cool. There's a sense of apathy that we've left behind us a couple decades back. And it's going to take a while maybe for us to figure out how to funnel that towards something better. But my point in all of this is, I think it's okay to hope. I think that the presence of the gospel and Christian thought in the world has done exactly what the Bible said it would do. It's provided kingdom values. It's provided a sense of hope. It's provided a contrast with things that are hopeless. And I'm encouraged by that. And, well, frankly, I think it's okay for you to be encouraged about the state of the world as well, even as we continue to work on trying to make stuff better. I think it's okay to be encouraged about the state of ourselves and what it looks like moving forward. Yeah, you're getting older. Yep, you're going to die someday. That can be a really dark, sad thing, or it can just be something that we, again, lean into and embrace. Humans are mortal. Our time here is very limited. But that buffer bar also has a positive effect. it puts us in a position where we need to think about what matters. It puts us in a position where we value the people we love all that much more. It puts us in a position where even the people who really frustrate us, we have to acknowledge we both have that buffer bar in common. And so there again, our sympathies and our empathies can be exchanged even with people we maybe don't agree with that much. But all of that question of aging and eventually death is resolved for the Christian in Christ. So, hey, tag on another year. Like, let's do a couple more wrinkles here by the eyes. Let's put in a couple little more shades of white in the otherwise not so white beard. Like, yeah, I'm seeing all that stuff happening. You're probably noticing it too, both in me and in you. That's okay. We're going somewhere. This isn't pointless. Getting older isn't pointless. Another year ticking off the calendar isn't pointless. And I think it's okay to lean into the hope that we can continue to grow together with people we agree with and disagree with, but to also lean into the hope that comes with the idea that there is a God who is behind this, that the God who is behind this is redeeming this, that the God who is redeeming this has a whole set of unending eternal values that even people who don't like the way Christianity is played out very much agree are valuable and are good. And though we might express that language differently, all of this is hardwired and built into who we are and what we want. And those things, even if we can't achieve them fully and rightly through our own efforts, will be achieved by God. And we get to be a part of that. So I guess the third thing for me, as I size this up, and take it for what it's worth for you if you want to, is that I think it's okay to lean into the hope thing and be excited about that. Final thing that I think is worth mentioning as well is I think there is a blessing in the turning of the calendar, the flipping of the year, that 365 days is, one chunk, 3,650 days is the decade chunk. But every time that calendar turns over, there is a built-in opportunity, almost a year of Jubilee concept, where a lot of how things were can be sort of placed in the how things were bucket. We get to keep all the benefits of how things were and carry those with us, but we can set aside some of the stuff that we would like to leave behind and be reminded that with time there is growth and there is grace, and simply lean into the reality that this next thing comes with fresh opportunities. So maybe some of you are in a place where there was a bunch of stuff you wanted to get done in the last decade. Maybe you feel like you didn't get it all done. Join the crowd. I'm absolutely with you on that. But there's also opportunity. We're alive, we're in the game. These things that we believe, for me, involve being redemptive and trying to make a change in things. And I look back on the 10s and I'm like, man, we fought a lot with each other, and maybe I should have done more or said more or tried to do something different to make things better, but I don't know. It's hard. And so, yeah, I'm going to take a few regrets with me that way. But mostly, I'm just excited to turn the calendar and see what the 20s look like. I think they can be a more gracious decade. I think this can kind of be the low point in terms of what the dialogue was like. And I think one of the things I'm most excited about in the fresh opportunity that comes with the turning of this calendar is, as a Christian, I think I have got right in front of me exactly that which is the balm for the stuff that ails society. And the gospel is the solution to all of this stuff. Now, right now, it's been fashionable for all sides to imagine that force and the state and government and making rules and laws that make other people do your thing and reimagining society your way and making it happen through informational combat and through the force of the state or whatever we might want to do. A lot of us have imagined that that's the way to get it done. The beautiful thing about being a Christian going into 2020 is I just have this message, and I think there's an actual God behind this message. And the message is that all the stuff that is broken and busted up about us as individuals, about our relationships with each other, about our world, is redeemable and is being redeemed in Christ. Demonstrated by his work on the cross and the miracle of the resurrection, demonstrated by reason, demonstrated by looking at the world around us and nature. We have all kinds of reason to believe that what we get to trot out is not a message of force. It's not a message of beating down the doors of the people who don't see it like we do to make them do our thing. But it's grace, it's love, it's living out a set of ideals and a relationship with God that is irresistibly beautiful. And I'm excited to see what it looks like for Christians to lean into that in the 2020s. I would like to lean into that. I won't always get it right. Please be patient with me when I don't. But that's what I'm going for with this channel. It's what I'm going for with my individual life. And I hope, and have good reason to hope, that when we sit and have this conversation 10 years from now, there's going to be a lot of really new and fresh and beautiful things that we've got to see and be a part of. I'm optimistic that there will be a sense of peace that we can develop, not just amongst ourselves, but with others. And I'm also excited to see if there's a trend that develops toward doing all of this stuff that we do and working out all of our impulses toward accomplishing the things we want to accomplish in the world as Christians with peace, without force, with persuasion, with nothing more than being equipped with the message of a God who loved people enough to see them in their brokenness, send His own Son to die on a cross for the resolution of our shortcomings and our failures, rose from the dead in case there was any question as to what happened on that cross and whether it was legitimate, and in doing so, beats death, beats failure, and all of that is so much bigger and more important and more meaningful than the little things that we quibble about and the little ways that we try to gain an upper hand on each other. I'm excited about that. I want to be a part of that. That's what I'm going for here. I invite you to be a part, and I also invite you to join me in, frankly, learning what we need to learn from the last 10 years of stuff that could have gone better, taking with us the stuff from the last 10 years that did go well, giving thanks to God in all of it, and seeking to be people of grace and redemption moving forward. And with that, I feel tremendous optimism about what the next 10 years look like. I have no idea how long I just talked, but I'm really grateful for those of you who are still hanging out with me. I hope you have an amazing New Year's, and I hope the next year and the next decade are incredible in the context of this beautiful thing that God has done and that we get to be a part of. Last thought, 1 Peter 1:3. Praise be to the God and Father of our Lord Jesus Christ. In His great mercy, He has given us birth into a living hope through the resurrection of Jesus Christ from the dead. I said all that stuff. I suppose I could have said it faster by just reading that. All right, I'm Matt. This is a 10-Minute Bible Hour. We'll see you soon.